Welcome to the Empowered Meaning Coaching Podcast Series. I'm your host, Louise and Maurice. You know I love hearing from you. So in the comment section, make sure that you're sharing your experience. And if this material is resonating with you, make sure you're giving it a thumbs up and share it with anyone who might benefit from it. Let's continue. Are sarcastic people confident? What do you think? Well, in this podcast, episode 4, we're going to look at sarcasm and confidence. And we're going to begin by looking at the meaning of sarcasm, that dictionary definition of sarcasm, so that you're clear on what it is and what it isn't. And then we're going to move on to sarcasm and confidence research, and then the sarcasm and limiting beliefs. What are those limiting beliefs and how do they not support people? We'll look at that. And then coaching sarcastic people. Free coaching questions, that PDF document on my website. I'm going to share with you where to find that. Remember, no email address is required. It's free to download. All right, are you ready to listen in? Let's continue. Here's some quick tip reminders. There's a lot of great information contained in this podcast. I don't want you to miss anything. So if you like to read as you listen to me, click on the CC to pull up the closed captions. This gear icon, when you click on it, this will pull up the settings. The playback speed is on normal. When you click on that, you can increase the speed to 2x, which will make this go quicker. Let's continue. Let's start by dissecting the meaning of sarcasm, beginning with what sarcasm means to you. When you think of the word sarcasm, what one word or phrase would you use to describe it? Keep that word in mind as I discuss the dictionary definition of sarcasm. All right, from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition of sarcasm: it is a form of verbal irony wherein the speaker usually says the opposite of what they actually mean. Sarcasm is often used to mock someone or something or to express irritation or contempt. Sarcasm is not the same as humor, wit, or satire, although it may sometimes overlap with them. Sarcasm is a sharp and often satirical or ironic utterance designed to cut or give pain, a mode of satirical wit, depending for its effect on bitter, caustic, and often ironic language that is usually directed against an individual. Sarcasm is a form of verbal irony that often expresses contempt, mockery, or criticism. Remember, I will have this dictionary definition on the PDF document, that download that I'll have available for you. Toward the end of this podcast, I'll share with you exactly where to find it. List of character traits of people who use sarcasm. Intelligence. They are quick-witted, observant, and creative. Courageous. They are not afraid to speak their mind, even if it means hurting someone's feelings. Contemptuous. They often have a low opinion of others and express it through mockery and ridicule. Insensitive. They may lack empathy and compassion for the feelings of their targets. Passive-aggressive. They may use sarcasm to avoid direct confrontation and express hidden resentment or anger. Low self-worth. They may have insecurities and use sarcasm as a defense mechanism or a way to cope with stress. Of course, not all sarcastic people have these traits, and not all of these traits are negative. Sarcasm can also be used for humor, irony, or criticism. It depends on the context, the intention, and the tone of sarcasm. Some people may appreciate sarcasm and find it amusing, while others may find it offensive and hurtful. Now that you know the dictionary definition of sarcasm and some of the character traits that people who are sarcastic have, how close was the dictionary definition to the one word or phrase that you used to describe sarcasm? All right, now from the dictionary definition of sarcasm and the character traits of people who use sarcasm, I want you to think of people you know who fit the description. Because as you listen to the research coming up, it will help you gain insight and perspective. But before we get to that research, let's look deeper at the meaning of sarcasm, what it is and what it is not, as well as some myths associated with it. You have to remember that sarcasm is not the same as lying. Sarcasm implies a contrast between the literal and the intended meanings of the words. Some common myths about people who are sarcastic are they are rude and mean. This is myth number one, that people who are sarcastic are rude and mean. Now, this isn't necessarily true, as sarcasm can also be used for humorous or playful purposes, or to show affection or solidarity. However, sarcasm can also be hurtful or offensive, depending on the context and the tone of the speaker. Myth number two. They are insecure and unhappy. People who are sarcastic are insecure and unhappy. Well, this is a stereotype that assumes that sarcastic people use sarcasm as a defense mechanism to hide their insecurities or dissatisfaction with life. However, sarcasm can also be a sign of intelligence, creativity, or confidence, as it requires the ability to manipulate language and understand different perspectives. Myth number three, this final myth, that sarcastic people are dishonest and untrustworthy. Well, this is a misconception that confuses sarcasm with deception. It's as if sarcastic people are always lying or hiding their true feelings. However, sarcasm can also be a way of expressing one's opinions or emotions more effectively, or of challenging the status quo or the norms of society. All right, so now that you know the myths associated with sarcasm and the definition, as well as the character traits, are sarcastic people confident? What does the research say? Well, let's review that research next. Sarcasm and confidence research. The researchers say that sarcasm is formed in childhood through exposure to sarcastic language and social cues. Children usually start to understand sarcasm around the age of 5 or 6, but they may not appreciate the humor or the criticism behind it. Sarcasm can be used in healthy ways to express humor, creativity, or affection. Or sarcasm can be used in unhealthy ways to express anger, insecurity, or passive aggression. The way sarcasm is used in childhood can impact how people use it and respond to it in adulthood. For example, people who grew up in families where sarcasm was frequently used may be more insensitive to others' feelings or more defensive when they encounter sarcasm. Some situations that can trigger people when they have distorted views of using sarcasm as a form of communication are when they feel insecure or threatened by someone or something, and they use sarcasm to avoid confrontation or to assert dominance. When they are angry or frustrated with someone or something, and they use sarcasm to vent their emotions or to criticize without taking responsibility. Another situation that can trigger people when they have distorted views of using sarcasm as a form of communication are when they feel socially awkward or anxious, and they use sarcasm to lighten the mood or to bond with others, but they end up alienating or offending them. Now, the main fear that sarcastic people experience is the fear of rejection or vulnerability. They may use sarcasm as a way of hiding their true feelings or needs, or as a way of protecting themselves from being hurt or exposed. The belief that comes from that fear is that they are not good enough or worthy of acceptance or respect. We'll talk more about limiting beliefs as we continue on, but it's important to understand that. They may think that they have to be sarcastic to be funny, smart, or interesting, or to avoid being seen as weak, boring, or needy. Now, the feelings they experience are often negative, such as anger, resentment, bitterness, shame, guilt, or loneliness. They may also feel misunderstood, isolated, or unappreciated. The behaviors and defense mechanisms that they use as protective measures are denial. They may deny that they are being sarcastic or that they have a problem with sarcasm. They may also deny the impact of their sarcasm on others or themselves. Rationalization. They may justify their sarcasm as a form of humor, wit, or intelligence. They may also blame others for being too sensitive, too serious, or too stupid to understand their sarcasm. Projection. They may attribute their own feelings or motives to others. They may accuse others of being sarcastic, hostile, or dishonest when they are actually projecting their own sarcasm, hostility, or dishonesty. Displacement. They may redirect their sarcasm from the original source of their anger or frustration to a safer or more acceptable target. They may also use sarcasm to cope with stress or boredom. According to some research, sarcasm can have both positive and negative effects on confidence, depending on the context and the intention of the speaker. On the positive side, sarcasm can be a form of humor that signals confidence and competence. It can also enhance creativity and abstract thinking by creating a contrast between the literal and the intended meaning. On the negative side, sarcasm can be a form of hostility or aggression that masks insecurity or low self-esteem. It can also damage relationships and trust by creating misunderstanding or resentment. Some possible reasons why people use sarcasm to cover up their obstacles or challenges are that they fear being vulnerable or rejected if they express their true feelings or needs. They have difficulty coping with negative emotions or stress. They lack effective communication or social skills to assert themselves or resolve conflicts. They've learned sarcasm as a coping mechanism from their family or culture. All right, so that wraps up the research part. And are sarcastic people confident? Well, in order to answer that, it's always about giving context and meaning and helping people to understand, helping yourself to understand. But it's always about the context and understand what's going on underneath the surface. Are these just defense mechanisms? And did they grow up with this? Is there a self-esteem issue? Because remember, a lot of the research also says that people who use sarcasm, they are very intelligent and witty and confident. So is it just the coping mechanism, and are they using that to mask? Remember, Always understanding what's going on underneath the surface. And when you understand the origin of their behaviors and thought patterns, you can be authentic and compassionate without taking their sarcasm personally. But this is where you have to understand people who are sarcastic. What are their limiting beliefs? Let's look at that next. Limiting beliefs are thoughts or states of mind that you think are the absolute truth and stop you from doing certain things. They can affect your self-esteem, your performance, your relationships, and ultimately your happiness. Limiting beliefs can also prevent you from reaching your full potential and achieving your goals. When you are a coach, consultant, team lead, manager, it helps you to understand limiting beliefs and how they affect people who are sarcastic. Sarcasm, again, is that form of humor that often involves saying the opposite of what you mean, usually to mock or criticize someone or something. Sarcasm can sometimes be used to ease tension, express frustration, or show wit, but it can also be a sign of anger, hostility, insecurity, or low self-esteem. And sometimes people who are anxious in a situation will use sarcasm to ease, as I said, that tension. People who are sarcastic may use this type of humor to cope with their limiting beliefs, such as, I have to protect myself from being hurt. This belief can make sarcastic people avoid being vulnerable, honest, or open with others. They may use sarcasm as a shield to hide their true feelings, opinions, or needs. They may also fear rejection, criticism, or conflict and use sarcasm to deflect or avoid them. Another belief, that belief, I have to prove myself to others. This belief can make sarcastic people feel insecure, competitive, or defensive. They may use sarcasm as a weapon to attack, belittle, or intimidate others. They may also seek validation, approval, or admiration from others and use sarcasm to impress, entertain, or influence them. Another belief is, I have to cope with the negativity in the world. This belief can make sarcastic people adopt a cynical, pessimistic, or fatalistic outlook on life. They may use sarcasm as a coping mechanism to deal with stress, frustration, or disappointment. Now, if you use sarcasm or know people who use sarcasm, what might be some limiting beliefs that you have witnessed or you understand that you can add to this list of limiting beliefs? Because it's important when you understand limiting beliefs to realize that a lot of these limiting beliefs, these are those defense mechanisms, because if they believe that to be true, then they don't have to feel, and sometimes it's these feelings that sarcasm is meant to avoid feeling. And when you are coaching people or coaching yourself to understand, oh, every time I use sarcasm, it hurts people, and that's not who I am, that's not who I choose to be, it's just a habit, or using sarcasm in a way that's not hurting people. Well, how can a coach people who are sarcastic? We'll look at that next. Coaching people who are sarcastic. And you've just learned about the limiting beliefs of people who use sarcasm, and maybe you added to the list of those limiting beliefs. Well, you can coach people to identify and overcome their limiting beliefs by using various strategies. You can ask those powerful questions. I'll share with you 5 that you can ask, and then provide you with 5 more on a PDF document. But those coaching questions are always to challenge people's assumptions and help them to discover new perspectives. That's what those questions always do, because sometimes people are just not self-aware. Sometimes they have no idea that they are hurting people with their sarcastic comments. Again, a coach can provide positive feedback and encouragement to boost someone's confidence and motivation, guide them in that direction. You can also use positive affirmations and visualization techniques that help to create a positive mental image and those desired outcomes that they want, and how to communicate in a way that's not always offending and criticizing. And then it's about always setting those realistic and attainable goals and action plans that align with their values and strengths. Now, coaching can also help a sarcastic person by guiding them to recognize the underlying emotions and needs behind their sarcasm. Now, in the confidence section of this podcast, we had talked about that, talked about the defense mechanisms and the beliefs, the fears, the feelings, and ultimately those protective measures that they take. And when you guide people to understand those emotions and needs behind that sarcasm, then it helps them to be more aware. Remember, it's about helping them to discover new perspectives. You can show empathy and compassion without taking their sarcasm personally or reacting defensively. You can acknowledge their strengths and achievements and help them to appreciate their own value. So they're not always trying to cover up and deflect. You can invite them to express their thoughts and feelings more directly and constructively. Really, it's about helping them to find another way of communicating and then help them develop a more positive and supportive inner dialogue. Because when you're dealing with people and you are with a group of people, especially if you're managing or leading, not everyone understands sarcasm, and different cultures take sarcastic comments in different ways. So this sarcasm can be a form, it can be that conduit to conflict, and you want to be able to resolve this. So coaching can help. So let's look at 5 coaching questions that you can use to help people who use sarcasm as a defense mechanism to begin to communicate more authentically. And that first question is, how do you feel when you use sarcasm? Now, this helps you to understand as well why they use sarcasm. How do you feel? Well, I feel intelligent. And I guess deep down inside, it's because I don't feel intelligent. So I want to show everyone that I'm intelligent. So that gives you another limiting belief that you can expand on and really unpack that limiting belief. Because when people understand, when you get to the root of why people are using sarcasm, then you can help them to understand how other people are feeling when they use sarcasm. All right, question number 2. How do you think, which leads me to my next question, how do you think others perceive you when you use sarcasm? And this is all about those feelings, and people have no idea sometimes the perception. So they think that they're coming across intelligent, and other people are thinking the opposite way. So how do you think others perceive you when you use sarcasm? Gets them talking about how they want to be perceived. And in actuality, it's having the opposite effect. Question number 3, what are the benefits and costs of using sarcasm for you and others? And this is that cost-benefit analysis, and it's always beneficial with people who are analytical, and it helps them to look at it in a way where it's really costing them. And yeah, sometimes there might be a benefit, but they're going to see that the cost category is going to be a lot more detailed. Question 4, what are some situations or triggers that make you more likely to use sarcasm. And they might say, well, it's those times where I feel anxious, or those times where I feel very uncomfortable. I'm not sure what to say. So that's when I use sarcasm. And it helps you to then guide them in a way to deal with ways to cope, which brings me to question 5. What are some alternative ways to express yourself or cope with those situations or triggers? And many times people don't realize that there's other ways to communicate and other ways to express themselves so that they are not criticizing people. They're not putting other people down if that's their go-to sarcasm. And this helps them to develop those strategies and provides them with an action plan. And as a coach, consultant, team lead, manager, if you are working with someone who is using sarcasm and it is impacting their career, it's impacting their ability to have solid and healthy relationships, then this is an opportunity for you to guide them beyond that. And that's what questions do. These powerful questions, when they're put into action, will give them a path, a new path. Because if they've never been called to task on this, they just think that this is a normal way of communicating. However, we are working now, we're in a global community. Not everyone understands the irony of sarcasm, and nor should they have to. So it's helping them to be more literal and meaning what they say so that everyone understands the communication and it's not meant or taken as a form of criticism. All right, so this is where you can really guide people. Now, I want you to keep listening because I'm going to let you know where you can download 5 more specific and powerful questions that will help you coach sarcastic people. Well, that's a wrap for this podcast. Hopefully you've been sharing your experience in the comments section. I want to hear from you. You bring with you so much valuable insight. And if this podcast, what you've been listening to, if it resonated with you, make sure you give it a thumbs up as well. Share with people who can benefit from it. If you are not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so you're notified when the next podcast drops. I am your podcast host, Louise and Maurice, and I appreciate that you've spent your valuable time with me. As promised, I'm going to share with you where you can find the valuable PDF document with the rest of the coaching questions on it. You want to go to my website, louiseandmaurice.com, and you want to click on free or hover your mouse over free, and you see all of these resources that I have for you. Free coaching training, coaching questions, empowered mindset. The last one, what should I do, which was the empowered prevention series. And now coaching podcast. You want to click on coaching podcast, and that will take you to the free resources associated with season 1 of the coaching podcast.